before Maverick?
No.
No. Maverick, okay. All right, so you met, who hasn't met one before Maverick? I know you have, you don't count. Well, you do count, but who else? You met one? Where did you meet a wild horse?
Oh my God. At a ranch.
At a ranch? Okay.
I could tell you where I met one. I met one when I lived in Virginia. I lived on a farm.
Yeah, and they had wild horses in Virginia?
Wants the grass is what he wants.
So who else? Anybody else ever met
Where's
one?
the other lead rope? Here. I'm going to give you this lead rope and grab the other one for her because he's just, he's a hungry boy.
Okay, so the reason people are starting to see wild horses is because our government is starting to round them up and bring them in because they want the land so that the ranchers can graze on the Mustang land with their cows. So they want the land for cattle grazing. So that's why you see so many wild horses coming into captivity, because we're trying to move them all out so that we can have the land. Now Maverick here, see this brand? That brand was given him when he was found at first on a wild horse reserve. That brand, if you shave this much down, what it'll tell you is that he was born in 2001. He was born in New Mexico, and he was from a New Mexican herd. And he was captured when he was 8 years old, which means he was the equivalent of a 24-year-old in human years when he was captured. All right? Which means, you know, he was pretty much a wild horse, right? By the time you're 24, you're pretty set in your ways. So he was pretty wild, and chances are when they captured him, the way they capture horses is they bring in helicopters and they run them and run them and run them with the helicopters until they get tired, and then they run them into a pen, put them into a big trailer like I have, only they stack them in really tight, and then they take them off and they put them in pens, and they basically just don't handle them much. So what happened to Maverick is he was captured, and chances are because he was 8, he fought back. Wouldn't you fight back for your family, right, if somebody was taking you away? And so he fought back, and because he fought back, they branded him with this big U. And this U means he's a 3-striker, which means he was 3 times tried to be adopted and trained, and 3 times they brought him back and said, nobody can touch this horse. He's unadoptable, unlovable, untouchable, untrainable. So they sent him off to a place that is for horses in the BLM that can't be touched. And about 9 months later, a year later, the equine community flew over that place, and they found 200 horses starving to death and 100 dead bodies because they'd already starved. Now Maverick here was obviously one of the 200 that survived. And if you look, you can see how he's got all this white hair and all of these kind of chunky marks on him in the front? Those are the scars from the barbed wire, because he had to go over barbed wire to get food. And so when you shave him, I shaved him down this winter, and you can see scars everywhere from the barbed wire, from where he went over the barbed wire to try to get a bite to eat to survive. So when they got him back from that horrible place, he was about 400 pounds. Right now he's probably about 700, 750. He was pretty much starved to death. And so they brought him and they took him to a vet, and they got him taken care of, and they brought him back into the system. And he ended up being brought to California, to Northern California, and he was part of a place called the Grace Foundation, which is up at El Dorado, up by Sacramento. And they tried to adopt him out again to another trainer who brought him back and said, can't touch that horse, can't get near that horse is crazy. Can you see how crazy he is?
No.
Right? Can you tell?
Yeah.
He's untouchable. Can you see that now? Hi, handsome. Yeah, he doesn't like it at all. So he came into a place where I had my horses about 2 years ago as part of a Mustang Challenge. Now, do you guys know what a Mustang Challenge is? Okay, so what happens is they take the Mustangs and they take them to trainers, for trainers to teach them things so that the public can learn more about Mustangs and more about wild horses, and the wild horses can get exposed to people, and that way people come and adopt them. And it's a way of trying to help them be adopted rather than be sent away to make dog food, or like Maverick was, to a place where they're hungry. So he came down here and with a trainer friend of mine, and we we couldn't touch him. We had to use a cane pole. Everybody know what a cane pole is, fishing pole is? We had to use a cane pole through the corral to desensitize him and get him to even let us touch him because he was so afraid of humans. And can you blame him? You know, I mean, they captured him, they sent him away to starve to death, they brought him back, nobody was nice to him. So we started working with him, and about 2 weeks into it, I was the first person he ever touched. Now, how could I not adopt him when he touched me, right? How could I not adopt this little guy? So I adopted him, and right after that, he broke 5 of the trainer's ribs. He bucked her off, broke 5 of her ribs in the back, and she was out for quite a while. And so we started riding him, and he bucked a lot. You ever seen a horse buck?
Yeah.
Right? Well, he bucks like a bull.
I had a horse for once I was riding and a horse bucked for my first time and I stayed on.
Did you stay on? Good for you. Well, when Maverick bucks, we have yet to find anybody that can stay on because he's kind of really instinctual and kind of gnarly. So he goes up and side to side and actually can land on his feet and pivot and land going the opposite way he was before, right in the air. His first jump with me, when he bucked me off the first time, his jump was 15 feet from a standstill. So it's an incredible centrifugal force. So he started bucking, and so we kind of said, no, we're not going to do that for a while. So I got off him and loved him and rubbed him and touched him and got him to the point that, you know, he was really comfortable. And then I got back on him, and it's been a year now. He's jumping rails. Does everybody know what jumping is?
Yeah.
He's jumping rails with a little girl. He's showing in hunter-jumper classes. He loves to jump. He looks for the next jump. He gets in a cross-country course, and he goes, where's the next jump? Where's the next jump? And he jumps right now that are up to here on him, which is really high. And evidently he has perfect form. So what we found was, you know what, here's a little guy that said he was unlovable, unworthy, untouchable. And look at him now. He's unstoppable. He can do anything he wants to. So his message to everybody is, you're never unloved. You're never unworthy. You can always do whatever you want to do. And that's Maverick's story. Now, how many of you know how wild horses came to the United States? Anybody know? Spaniards brought them. What were you going to say? It was actually the conquistadors who were the Spanish conquistadors. Do you guys know who they were? Everybody heard of Who hasn't heard of a conquistador? It's okay, a lot of people haven't. Okay, so the conquistadors were sent by the Spanish king and queens to come to the United States and to the North Americas and look for gold, right? They were looking for all of the wealth. And so when they came over, they brought their horses with them. And everybody thinks they brought, like, you know, okay horses. The conquistadors were the wealthy among the Spanish in that age. And so they didn't bring any horses. They brought their prize-winning Andalusians. You guys know what an Andalusian is? Big, white horse. They brought their prize-winning Andalusians. They can be black-toothed. They brought Spanish barbs, which is what Maverick is. They're little. They're very compact. They have this gait that's very easy to ride. And they brought Jeannettes, which are now, those are actually extinct. Have you guys seen the pictures on caves of the horses that were like spotted? Those are Jeannettes, and they no longer exist. They actually went extinct in the Americas. But what happened was the Andalusians and the Spanish barbs and some of the other large horses became the forefathers of our wild Mustangs, right? Now, if you look at Maverick, Maverick's like a Spanish barb. He's little, he's compact, he has a really beautiful gait. You can sit his trot, everything's just like butter when you ride him. And so he came out of the Spanish barb line. Now, you'll see some Mustangs are bigger. Some of the wild horses are really big. Those came more out of the Andalusian line. Now, if you look at Maverick, any of you guys know what a Pasifino is? Any of you ever seen? We should have brought Lucy.
We should have brought Lucy.
My friend Corey here has a Pasifino, which is a little tiny horse from South America. When you put that South American Pasifino next to Maverick, they're built almost exactly the same. They have the same kind of gait, And yet one's from South America and one's from North America. They both came from a Spanish bar from the wild Mustangs when they were brought over. So pretty much all of our horses come from the original herds, other than that guy over there is a Morgan. Now Morgans are the first breed native to the United States. They're about the only one, other than quarter horses. They were the first breed, and nobody knows exactly how they happened. They just came along with a little horse named Justin Morgan, who was given to somebody to repay a debt. And when they got this scrawny, funny-looking little horse that has all these front-end muscles and not much in the behind, they couldn't figure out what he was. They took him for the debt, and a long story short, he became the local everywhere's big news because he could pull any stump out of anywhere he tried. And that's when they found out he was a different breed, and he was a Morgan. And Morgans are built to pull, so they have really strong front ends, and they don't engage their hind ends a lot because they pull. So they pull wagons, they pull tree stumps, they pull plows. Shadow pulls Maverick around. So that's the first American horse bred specifically in America, but these Mustangs are really the first ever horse in the Americas. All right, so that's how they came here. Now, how many of you guys come here? How many of you know about stubbornness in horses?
Yeah!
Yeah?
I do.
Yeah?
Everybody should raise their hand.
How many of you guys have ever played around a horse or been around a horse? Okay, have you been around horses that were really tame? Yeah? So you didn't have to, do you know, okay, so did you have to worry about those horses' instincts at all?
No.
No? Do you know about horses' instincts? What do you know about instincts in a horse? They get spooked really easily. What else?
I think that one of the instincts is to stay with the herd.
That's right. They have a family and it's called a herd. Very good. What else do you know about horses' instincts? Okay, we're going to talk about it because it's really interesting. Yeah?
Usually in the herd they have a leader that they listen to.
That's right. That's right. That's part of the herd
It's
family.
called
Let's talk.
matriarch.
No, let's talk a little bit. Yes, sir.
They're prey animals.
They are a prey animal. There you go. So, two key things about that whole thing. Number one, horses are prey animals. Now, do you know what a prey animal is versus a predator?
Over me.
Somebody
I do.
that gets eaten.
Okay, a prey animal gets eaten, right? What were you going to say?
Well, yeah, they get eaten.
Okay,
I know a predator is an animal that eats other animals.
that's right. A predator eats other animals, and a prey animal is what they eat. What were you going to say?
Same thing.
Same thing? Anybody else want to add to that? So what are we, humans?
Prey.
Predators. Predators, that's right. So what is
We're
a
predators
horse?
and prey.
No, we're predators.
No, well, bears can hunt us.
Yeah, but we're still predators. We can
And
kill a
mountains.
bear. We won't turn tail and run. Well, we should. We can kill a bear. So when a horse smells a human, what do you think they smell?
Predator.
McDonald's. They smell McDonald's. They smell that we ate cows, chickens, fish. They smell that we eat meat. Right. Do they eat meat?
No.
What are they? But
Herbivores.
what are they? They're meat. Right? Horses are meat. We smell like a meat eater. Hence, it's really amazing that this little wild horse is standing here next to me knowing I smell like McDonald's, knowing that he in his little brain, not that you have a little brain, Maverick, but in his little instinctual brain, there's an instinct going off right now saying, run, 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 because I smell like meat. I am a predator. And every time he looks at me and he goes, and then he goes, okay, she's okay. But that's instinctual to them. So now, as prey animals, they don't see directly ahead of themselves. Do you guys know that? A horse
Yeah.
can't see in front of themselves. They see to the side, like way back. He can see you. He can see all the way over there.
Can you
What-
see that stump?
Probably not. He'd probably turn his head like that to see that stump. But he sees this whole range of vision that we don't see. So consequently, one thing to remember about horses when you're walking up to him, you don't walk straight in front, you walk to the side so he can see you. And instead of going up like this, because see, he'll let me do it because he knows me. But if you were a prey animal and a predator that smelled like hamburger walked up to you like that, what would you do? Run! That's right. So the key is you walk up and you say, "Hi, Maverick." And he goes, "Oh, hi, you're okay." And he sniffs you and then you can rub. Right? So that's one thing to know. Another thing to know is if you were a prey animal and somebody ran at you, what would you do?
Run.
So don't run at a horse. And it's not just Maverick, pretty much any horse. Don't run at a horse because they're going, "Oh my God, the predators are coming after me. I'm going to get out of here."
Unless they're really tame.
Even if they're really tame, you run at a tame horse and they will still start back because it's
But
it's
What if you
instinct.
own them and know them?
I own him and I know him and I would never run at him. I would never walk up like, he actually lets me do that. Hi. But I wouldn't do that because
Because
that's not fair.
you have had them for lots and lots of years.
I've had him for a couple of years. Let me ask you this. How would you feel if your mommy or daddy walked up to you really fast and went like that?
I'd be scared.
So it doesn't matter if you're mommy, daddy, or you own them or not. What matters is they have instincts and you got to respect those instincts.
Owie.
Okay? So they have all these instincts. They also have the instinct, horses are empaths. Does anybody know what an empath is? Okay,
I think I know.
empaths
I think I
sense energy. We all know about energy, right? It's all around us in the sky and the earth and the trees and in us. Horses are energetic empaths. As part of being instinctual, they sense energy. So they don't just sense that they don't just sense that something moved over there. They sense that there's a lion and they can feel that energy of that attack and they run. They react to it, which is why with humans, they're really, really sensitive because they sense your energy. So if you're happy and easy and gentle when you walk up to a horse, they're going to go, "Hi, how are you?" Right? And be gentle. If you're afraid, what do you think they sense? Fear. Your fear. And how do you think they're going to react to your fear?
Fear.
There's a couple of ways. One is they run because they get afraid too. The other is they may sense your fear and go, I can get by with something here because you're afraid, so you're not going to do anything about it. Because they're smart.
And then they can hurt you.
They won't try to hurt you, but they may try to do like Maverick. When I went down there to catch him and he walked away from me, do you think he was afraid of me? What do you think he was?
Annoyed.
Playing games. He was playing games going, "I don't have to be caught by you. I can do whatever I want. Na, because I know you love me and I know you won't do anything to me about it." So sometimes you have to be smarter than them and you have to be really careful. I've learned with my energy with him, if I get really direct-minded and by gosh, I'm going to go up and catch him, and I get, he just goes fast. He just moves away faster and faster until I relax and go, "Okay, I don't care whether I catch you or not," and then he walks up to me because he's playing head games with me because he can sense all that.
Sorry.
We're good.
So, what do you know? You talked about herd families too and instinct. What do you know about herd families? Are herds families?
Yes.
Do they live together in the wild?
Yes.
They do, don't they? So who's the herd daddy? Very good. Stallion. Does everybody know what a stallion is?
Yes.
Okay, a stallion is the herd daddy, and he runs. Everybody thinks he runs the herd. Do you think the stallion runs the herd?
No.
Stallion doesn't run the herd. Oh, wow. That got you reacted. He says he agrees the stallion runs the herd because he was a stallion until he was 8, so he isn't buying that. Stallion is the daddy. The stallion protects the herd from other stallions and other mean horses. And like if a predator, if a mountain lion came at the herd, the stallion will protect the herd. But who really runs the herd?
The matriarch.
The bell mare. Matriarch or bell mare. In captivity, we call them a bell mare. They don't have bells in the wild. But the mare really, there's a mare who is the head, like the mommy, and that mare runs the herd. She tells the herd where to go, when to get water, when to get food, when to go to sleep. Everything that happens in every day, the mare, the matriarch, manages. Now also in the herd, there are more mares and babies, right? So all the mares and the babies and the matriarch and the stallion all live together. What do you think happens to all the other boys?
They leave the herd.
They leave the herd. They get kicked out by the stallion. The stallion only wants one boy around. So they kick out he kicks out all the other boys. And then what happens is all the boys band together. And they call them bands of brothers. Right? And they go and they run wild through the territory. And they hunt and they look for other mares, they look for other herds, they go pick on other stallions. They basically act like, no offense boys, but they're boys and they go get in trouble and play rough, right? And Maverick was one of them. He was not a stallion of a herd. He was one of the band of brothers. So he was out playing with the boys for 8 years before they caught him. Right? So now he looks at Shadow, who is a totally domestic horse. And he beats Shadow up all the time. Even though Shadow's bigger, who do you think wins? Why do you think that is?
Street smarts.
He's wild. He's tame. He will do things that one would never even think of doing. Right? So, for example, when we had to do a little test with him, we had to put him, everybody know what a tarp is?
Yes.
Right? Plastic tarp. One of the things we had to do was to get Maverick to walk on a plastic tarp. Now, most horses, terrified of a plastic tarp, right? Because it makes noise and it flutters, and you got to take forever to get a horse on a tarp. I mean, it's one step at a time. We started to take Maverick up to the tarp, and Maverick sniffed it, grabbed it in his mouth, and took off around the arena with it, sailing behind him. Because he can smell. Does he think that tarp's a predator?
No.
Because he knows what a predator smells like. Now Shadow thinks that tarp's going to eat him alive. Right? So Shadow looks at that tarp and goes, and has a panic attack. Maverick looks at it and goes, food. That's the difference between wild and domestic horses. Right? Maverick, a big tractor went up to Maverick. You know those big bulldozers? Big bulldozer comes up to Maverick, and we're riding, and I'm thinking, oh Lord, I'm going to die. And Maverick walks up and tries to take a bite of it. Shadow turns around and runs the other direction because it's going to eat him. So that's the difference. Wild horses are smarter because they've been exposed to more. They're more. He gets out of every pen we've ever put him in. He doesn't. These lips open carabiners. They open snaps. They took a gate off the hinges last night, lifted it up off the hinges and opened it so he could get in the feed room. That's wild horses. So, who's got a question? Who wants to know something else about horses? Yes, sir.
How long did it take you to train? How long did it take you to train Shadow to be domestic?
Shadow was born domestic. So Shadow was born to horses that were already with humans. And so he was taught by humans from the day he was born. He was handled by them. He probably had a halter on by the time he was 3 months old. He was raised with humans, which is domesticated. So he was taught by his mommy, who had been raised by humans, and by humans. Whereas Maverick was raised by his wild mommy and all of his wild friends in the wild, and he had never seen another human probably until he was around 8 years old when they came to capture him. He might have seen him in the distance, but he'd never had one touch him. So it's about how they're raised. So you can take a wild horse and you can train him like we've trained Maverick, so we can ride him and pet him and love him, but that doesn't mean he's domesticated, because he's not. He's still a wild horse under here. If I gave him the chance and let him go in the wild, you think he'd stay with me?
No.
I'd like to think so, but no. He would be gone. Shadow would stay with me. If I gave him the chance to run off, he might go a little ways, but he wouldn't go far, and he'd turn around and come back because he doesn't have that adventure spirit. This guy would be gone in a heartbeat. You have a question. His brothers, you know what, we don't know exactly what happened to the whole herd. I know that when I took him back, you know I told you we did that Mustang Challenge? When I took him back to the Mustang Challenge in Sacramento, it was interesting because all of these horses had been at the Grace Foundation together, and we had him for 7 weeks, and then we took him back to show what we'd done with him. And when we took him back and all the other horses were there, they all started whinnying at each other, and it was like they had found their families again. So they're all in stalls in this big barn, and they're all calling to each other and talking to each other, and they hadn't seen each other in 7 weeks, and they weren't even from the same herds. They had just been there for a couple of months together before they were taken out to the challenge. So they remembered each other, and they called each other. Chances are all of his brothers were adopted by other people in the BLM, or they may have been sent away and used, you know, they send away Mustangs and we use them for dog food. What? It's not pretty, but yeah, we do. We send them away when they're not touched, like Maverick, with this ewe now, if it happened now, and this, like right now, he'd probably be sent away to be turned into dog food instead of sent to where he was. So we're very grateful he didn't become dog food, aren't we? Because I can't see him as dog food. It would kill me. So you had, I saw questions down here.
Is he shod?
No, he's not. Shadow is. Maverick isn't. When we first got Maverick, we shot him for a little while because his hooves were so short and his cuticles were bleeding. Okay, so hooves. Horses have nails, fingers, just like we do. It's just they're all encased in that hoof. So they have like cuticles. They have all this stuff up in there. And if you don't take care of their hooves right, they peel back and they get bloody cuticles just like we get blood with our nails if they stub. So his were so cut back and so ruined that, and he'd been, because of the starvation, they'd also gotten brittle. So we put shoes on him for about, how long do you have shoes? 3 months. And then once his hooves grew back out, I took the shoes off him because I just don't think it's right to have shoes on a wild horse. I just think, you know what, he didn't mind. But what he did was he went, because he couldn't figure out the weight, and then he tried to walk, and it took him a minute to figure out how to walk because he'd never had his hooves encased, and that extra weight on the bottom really bugged him. And it helped him buck, though, I'll tell you this. He bucked much better with shoes on because he could land solid. Yes, sir?
So, why do they have shoes if horses don't usually need, like out in the wild they wouldn't have shoes on?
So, horses in the wild get, okay, so you know how horses have, inside their hooves, they have this soft skin. Don't go anywhere. They have this soft skin, right? Would you guys mind throwing me that rope? That way I can just put it on him and I don't have to worry. They have this soft bottom of their sole, right? And those soles over time get hard so that they can like walk on rocks and things, but it takes time. And so with Maverick, the other thing is, no, it's not a snake. We saw a snake in Wilder Saturday, and he's a little freaked out still. He had a rattlesnake come at him. But so over time, they get hard. The reason we put shoes on is like, for example, Shadow has shoes on because Shadow jumps fences with a little girl. He jumps big, tall fences, and when he lands, it stubs it breaks back his shoes, or his hoof. So we put shoes on him to keep him from breaking that front end when he lands. Horses with black hooves, see how his hooves are black and Shadow's are black? Black hooves are tougher than light hooves. So when you see a black hooves horse, chances are their soles are harder and they can go barefoot easier than a horse with light hooves or with white and black. So you put shoes on him so that, like for example, Shadow has shoes because of his jumping. He also has shoes because when he goes out, we trail ride a lot, and his soles are soft. So he steps on a rock and he goes, ow, and then he plays it for a while, and you know, it's the whole way back he's going, oh, my foot hurts, my foot hurts. And so I keep shoes on him because you know what, he's had shoes all his life. Maverick, on the other hand, we put him on, as soon as I could, I took him off, and I haven't put him back on, and he's gone back to really tough feet. So it just depends. I'm going to take Shadow barefoot when he stops jumping. I'll let him go barefoot because I think it's better for them. But when we tried it with him jumping, and he was ripping his feet, and it was not good, so he was hurting. Yes, sir?
You know how when they go into the wild, what if they're like, their hooves get like go torn apart?
They do. They get all. If you look, when he came to us, his feet. Maddie, will you let me have a foot? You want me to have a foot, buddy? Here, let me have this. So can you guys see his foot? I don't know if he'll let me keep it up for long or not. So his feet. Nope, he won't. He's like, no, don't do that. His feet were curled up at the end. So when they grow out, they grow like this, and then they curl. They were curled up and then split with pieces missing, and it was awful. It looked really bad. So the first thing we did was we had somebody come in and trim him up, and he was fine with that. He actually let us do that once he got over being touched. And then we put shoes on him. But in the wild, they basically, all the rocks and the walking they do, it breaks them off. So when you're going up a cliff and that rock, and you scrape that hoof, it scrapes that front end of that hoof off and they keep them broken back. They just don't keep them trimmed well like we do. They don't look round. They look like this. Does that answer your question? Who else? Questions? No? Okay, so who wants to pet a Mustang? Okay, so here's what